The evidence paints a disturbing picture. The DNA on the towel and the screwdriver, the rifle traced back to his family, the hidden note and the messages that reveal premeditated intent, the roommate who became the crucial bridge between private confession and public investigation. Every thread points toward Tyler Robinson, yet the motive remains layered: ideological, personal, psychological, and still some pieces of this puzzle lie buried out of sight. When someone confesses, how many of us believe the man? How many demand proof? In this case, the buried proof may already be speaking louder than the confession itself. But perhaps the real mystery isn't what we've uncovered, it's what remains hidden. If you found this deep dive illuminating, make sure you like, subscribe, and share. The more people who dig into the buried evidence, the harder it becomes to suppress the truth. Don't leave this story sitting in the dust. Telling it could shift the narrative. And I want to hear from you. Comment below with your theory. Was Tyler Robinson guilty? Or was something deeper at play? Because this case is far from closed. New filings, undisclosed evidence, and appeal. Any of these could append the story we think we know. Stay tuned, because what's buried today might be unearthed tomorrow. I had the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk, and I'm going to take it. I'm sorry. These were not just words scrawled in a private message. They were fragments of a confession. But the question isn't simply what Tyler Robinson admitted to. It's who he claimed sent him. Because in Tyler's own words, this wasn't a solo mission. Did Tyler Robinson really kill Charlie Kirk? Was his confession fabricated, twisted by investigators, or was it the raw truth, buried beneath layers of evidence no one wanted to see? And if Tyler was telling the truth, then who gave the order? Who told him to pull the trigger that silenced one of America's most polarizing voices? Why was the rifle left behind, wrapped in a towel in the bushes? How close did forensic testing tie Robinson's DNA to the scene? What role did his own roommate, his closest confidant, play? And could this really have been more than personal ideology, a sanctioned political hit? If this kind of deep dive intrigues you, hit that like button, subscribe, and in the comments tell me where you're watching from. I'll read some aloud in the next video. And let me be clear, if you don't share this, you might be letting the hidden evidence stay buried. Charlie Kirk was no ordinary target. As the founder of Turning Point USA, he commanded crowds of thousands, stirring fierce loyalty and bitter opposition in equal measure. On that September afternoon in Utah, the shot that rang out didn't just end a speech, it ignited one of the most explosive debates in modern political history. And at the center of it all stands Tyler Robinson, and the chilling confession that he didn't act alone. On September 10, 2025, at exactly 12:23 p.m. Mountain Time, Charlie Kirk stood before a crowd of more than 3,000 at Utah Valley University. In Orem, he was mid-speech, visible to everyone gathered, and then, a single rifle shot tore through the air. It struck Kirk in the neck, fatally wounding him in front of thousands. Panic exploded. Police and bystanders rushed toward the stage. Paramedics fought to save his life, but by the time he reached Timpanogos Regional Hospital, Charlie Kirk was pronounced dead. Investigators would soon reveal a chilling twist. The shot hadn't come from within the crowd. It had been fired from a rooftop perch, deliberate, planned, almost military in its precision. The rifle was found later, abandoned in a bush, wrapped tightly in a towel. A screwdriver was left behind on the rooftop itself, suggesting preparation, setup, a sniper's nest. The image of a targeted assassination at a public rally shocked the nation. Within hours, law enforcement and the FBI launched a full-scale manhunt. Surveillance stills were released. Suspect imagery circulated across every screen in America. The public was asked for tips. For 33 hours, the country watched as investigators hunted for a name, a face, a trail. And then Tyler Robinson turned himself in. He walked into a police station in Washington, Utah, flanked by his parents, after being identified through the very photos spread nationwide. And just like that, the story shifted from a faceless gunman to a living suspect, a young man at the center of an event that had already become one of the most divisive crimes in recent American history. The buried evidence begins with the forensic trail. Investigators matched Tyler Robinson's DNA to the towel that had been wrapped around the rifle. His DNA was also found on the screwdriver left behind on the rooftop perch. Prosecutors identified the weapon itself as a bolt-action rifle, one that had been gifted to Robinson by his own family. The towel and the screwdriver form a direct link between Robinson, the weapon, and the elevated spot where the fatal shot was fired. Ballistic analysis, trajectory reports, and shell casing details have yet to be fully released to the public, but investigators maintain the match is clear. Beyond the physical evidence lies the psychological footprint. A hidden note under his roommate's keyboard read, "I had the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk and I'm going to take it." In another message, he admitted, "To be honest, I had hoped to keep this secret till I died of old age." And in perhaps the most revealing line, Robinson explained, "I had enough of his hatred. Some hate can't be negotiated out." These words echo premeditation, intent, and justification, all hallmarks of a calculated mission. The digital trail is even harder to ignore. Messages between Robinson and his roommate captured not only his confession, but his instructions to delete evidence. In Discord group chats, Robinson allegedly repeated his admission, while others discussed recognizing him in suspect images released to the public. Surveillance footage placed someone matching Robinson's appearance near gas stations and routes connected to the crime scene. Together, these layers tell a story. The forensic evidence ties Robinson physically to the weapon and rooftop. The notes and messages reveal his mindset and intent. The digital trail shows him acknowledging his role in real time. This is not just a solitary confession, whispered under pressure. It is a matrix of evidence woven across biology, psychology, and technology, all pointing in the same direction. Tyler Robinson not only admitted he took the shot, he insisted he was sent to do it. Tyler James Robinson was 22 years old. He lived in St. George, Utah, with his roommate who was also his romantic partner. He had no criminal record. By all accounts, his life appeared ordinary. The bolt-action rifle traced back to his family, reportedly gifted by his grandfather, was the only clear connection between this young man and a weapon capable of altering history. On social media, he left traces of a shifting identity. Some described him as immersed in online subcultures, including the furry fandom, while others noted how his political views seemed to be changing in the months leading up to the shooting. But within this ordinary backdrop were contradictions. In the year before the attack, Robinson reportedly grew more progressive on LGBTQ and trans issues, diverging sharply from his family's traditional stance. Friends suggested he often detached or shut down when political debates arose. And yet this quiet young man, unremarkable to most, crossed into an act of extraordinary violence. Psychologists point to a pattern that has played out before: radicalization through online spaces, echo chambers of extremist ideology, group chats that normalize unthinkable acts until they feel inevitable. For Robinson, the pressures may have gone deeper: questions of identity, tension with family, the strain of his closest relationship, all of it feeding into a private storm. And at some point, that storm broke. The discontent he carried in silence became action on a rooftop. The line between private frustration and public assassination had been crossed. But the haunting question remains: was this the act of a lone young man, unraveling under pressure, or the act of someone who believed he was carrying out an order sent by forces larger than himself? Tyler Robinson did not confess to police first. He confessed to his roommate, his romantic partner, who was transitioning and living with him in St. George. This roommate became the central insider, the first to receive his words, the first to uncover the note hidden under a keyboard, the first to press him for confirmation. They were the one who turned those private messages over to investigators, messages that became the backbone of the case. Why cooperate? Was it a pursuit of justice, an act of self-preservation, or a moral responsibility too heavy to ignore? Their cooperation placed them at risk of public scrutiny, of accusations of complicity, of retaliation from those who doubted their story. And still, they chose to hand over the words that tied Robinson to the crime. But could there have been more? Pressure from authorities, fear, legal manipulation? Were the messages we've seen the whole truth, or only what was filtered and preserved? Public debate has only deepened the uncertainty. Some argue that the roommates' vulnerabilities, their identity, their privacy were leveraged, making them a fragile witness. Others insist their cooperation was essential, that without it the buried evidence might never have surfaced at all. And so the tension lingers. How much can we ask of an insider to risk for truth? And more haunting still, if Tyler claimed he was sent, what did his closest companion know about who gave the order? Prosecutors argue that the motive was ideological. Tyler Robinson, they say, was enraged by Charlie Kirk's rhetoric, what he described as hatred, intolerance, and a worldview that felt like a personal attack. Others suggest something deeper, a conflict between his identity, his closest relationship, and the values of his family. To Robinson, Kirk may not have been just a public figure, he may have symbolized everything that rejected him. Some see the act as symbolic, a way to silence one of the loudest voices on the right, a statement of defiance, or perhaps an attempt to send a message that would ripple far beyond Utah. And then there is the darker possibility that this was less about politics and more about a gradual psychological unraveling, the slow burn of resentment fed by echo chambers and online radicalization, until the leap from thought to action became irreversible. But so much remains unproven. No external group has been publicly confirmed. No scouts, no backup, no clear handlers. The deeper psychology of Robinson's final days, the exact breaking point remains sealed away in interviews and files we cannot see. His defense insists the confession may have been coerced, or influenced by fear, pressure, or even manipulation. That allegation has not yet been tested in court, and so we are left with questions that cut deeper than the evidence itself. Could someone so seemingly ordinary truly cross this line, and what warning signs were missed before it happened? Was Robinson's confession the raw truth, or a carefully shaped cover story? What pieces of evidence are still being kept from public view, and whose interests are protected by that silence? If new evidence emerges, could the entire narrative collapse and shift beneath our feet? And if Tyler Robinson was telling the truth about being sent, then who sent him? The moment Charlie Kirk fell, the story ignited a media storm. Within minutes, the assassination went viral, plastered across news feeds, social platforms, and television screens. Commentary surged from every direction. President Trump weighed in. Utah's Governor, Spencer Cox, issued an urgent statement. Pundits and influencers filled the airwaves, and almost as quickly, disciplinary actions followed against those whose words seemed to justify or even mock the killing. The case became a flashpoint. For some, it was proof that political violence had now crossed another line. For others, it was an opportunity to argue about cancel culture, radical speech, and the dangers of ideological extremism on both the left and the right. The narratives clashed. Was this an assassination born of politics, a cold-blooded ideological murder, or was it the tragic unraveling of a single young man? But beneath the outrage lay deeper societal questions. What does this case reveal about the echo chambers of our time, where online groupthink and radicalization can transform discontent into violence? What does it say about the vulnerability of public figures, of students gathered on campuses, of ordinary security measures that can be so easily bypassed? And where do we draw the line between free speech, hate speech, and the responsibility of those who wield powerful platforms? And so I ask you directly, if you believe justice should prevail, share this story, because without you, the buried evidence risks being swallowed by silence.